Well, ladies and gentlemen, it's another day with Colin James Dawson here over the, what should we call it? Leaving of Afghanistan. Here we are on 9/11. The day we wanted to be out on, the day they took back from us. One of the things I found most disturbing reported on CNN and Fox News, and one other one that I was just trying to say maybe anything else, ID materials. There's been a major investigation here with World War II groups and those allied to them, and even those that were not ever officially in any form of jail, that the families have always been on the run. One of them in particular has made most of their bones in the Mussolini time period. They were under Mussolini. They were freed from their principality situations and everything else with their dictation. They've yet to choose one principality or say that there's anything mistaken with them. They made the electronic currency so everyone could be paid at the front lines. It wasn't made by Germany. It was made by Italy. Just alone, that brings up everything in the world over situations with, how should we say, Bitcoin, electronic money wire transfer fraud, all sorts of things like that. I'll be honest, they're the only ones left around in Knoxville. One of them's gay in their family, so they kind of don't really hate him, but he's not welcome. Guys, they hate you, I will be honest. People disappear like straw in the wind, just like that song. And it comes all the way from a place in Kentucky. And there's a bunch of them that live around that area that will saunter down here and just tell you, you need to get yourself some new friends, not be around anybody. And they all like saying that they're the 7th, 8th, and 9th, whatever it is, of the Reich. But as it is, they live in the middle of nowhere. It's on the Appalachian Trail, like New York City is. So everybody's too stupid to do anything. Anyway, with the ID materials and things they do, how we left all those ID materials behind over in Afghanistan to make passports, the RFID tag chips, randomizer numbers that are better than anything like the randomizers on paper currency. Like we used to make movies that were so deadly that we may actually lose the world to like complete chaos because we lost a serial number sequencer. And now it's completely the opposite. It's like Bitcoin and electronic transfers. Not even bearer bonds are even anything anymore. They're a collector's item. The ID materials that were stolen all the time and they used them all the time went through, made everything that basically they just want to go down there and they want to try and scare bar owners for instantly $250 worth of court costs and the $400 to $500 fine. They would do this also with fire marshals and everything else. My manager at Walmart got caught his first year and just paid the fine instantly because they said there's too many people in there, and they fined him $1,000. So he paid him on Black Friday $1,000 out of his own pocket just to go away. Simply because there would be no way to get police in, and he was former CIA. And he's also one of the people that kind of like sideways, halfway looks into it because these people who stole the ID materials and everything, he's like, I might have been on the same side as them over there and came over and everything else, but they've cost me all my job and driven me crazy. But, you know, it's the local area that I live in. And I'm just going, so many people look so familiar on the north side, and I know people like dumping on Union County and everything. They've taken people away for instant legal everything. Even asked them if they wanted to have a lawyer there, and did everything right under civilian situation, former whatever it is, for them to have a deposition over what the person said and were able to be as sworn witnesses. And they're interrogating certain people over it. And, they weren't interrogating them necessarily. They were asking what they knew over their situation. But it was basically as close as legal as you could have to that. But, I'm just going, yep. The Fox News reporter was looking down at the thing like this, and the CNN was like, oh, let's make sure the lighting's all up. There's that thing there, that thing there. Oops, we had the 30 seconds on, so we... Sorry, President. Limitations. This is just going to be one of the biggest frivolous lawsuits that you've ever seen across the world. They have French, British, and probably with how we were under George Bush, Chinese making documentation. The biggest way to use any of this, everybody's like, go into the governments and be like a super espionage spy. No. Cripple it and chew up the tank treads and pop all the tires. They can sit there all day in their air conditioning and permanent gasoline going into it until they use up all the oil. We can just sit there and wait, and eventually they'll have to go away, and we can just keep popping all the tires, and we have 40 sets of tires and 80 sets of tank treads over at the house. And we've watched them enough to know how to fly their Black Hawk helicopters that you need quite a long thing in training on how to do. I think it used to be 6 weeks of tank training because there were so many buttons and whistles, and if you were the last person in there, you had to do everything in it. I'm just saying, there's a lot of situations that don't seem really totally non-defector, or else like embedded hidden agents, and it's like, what's a walk-off to most of the World War IIs, which the Taliban is part of, Al-Qaeda is part of. This was factual over at the military base right across the border, Fort Campbell, Kentucky. It was in the movie 12 Strong. It's why they were watching them. It was part of the Eisenhower Doctrine that President Obama's like, could that have gone after somebody in whatever it was? Because we were just engaged in tribalistic warfare back in the time with my dad. And it's like, no, it would go more against your mom. No one ever mentions. But, we can't really blame him because, everybody told him everything was all good. And, honestly, I would still rather blame someone like Bush instead of the Oblamo. And blame probably some things with like the Trump-Biden feud. That's where I could get there, and it's like, I know Trump is God to everybody, and Biden is God to everybody, and, one day we'll agree that one of them created the universe. Honestly, I don't think we can ever get to know these presidents or anything else because of the people that are so far down the totem pole into Joe Sixpack, and now it's like, there's 2 of them, whatever they're going to say, it's black and white anyway. But we'll just say it's the lettering on it. It says Trump beer, Biden beer. That's where we've gone to on it. And we'll never get to know anything politically because of the numerous, really ignorant Joe Sixpacks that have basically just gone out there and made themselves a knockoff version of the regular Joe Sixpack. But these ID materials, this is disturbing. This is something that, with what they have there, could embroil us in a war in any former colonial power of France, England, even Spain in a way. With there is connections between the colonic rebels. There have been Spanish terror attacks and Southern French terror attacks. So there has been some Spanish over there fighting alongside of us in a way separate from everything and doing their own thing. But we've not really been shooting in their direction. The Pope, after about halfway through Obama, he called in the American Crusader, which does mean that someone can be a Crusader of America, but they have to be castrated and have a penectomy, like the Pope has for the Jesuit order. All Crusaders of America have to be done that way. It's spread around that any people of the Great Crusade of America not attached to the Pope of World War II and World War I, and anything that's considered an opposite of the Crusades launched against them, including the Spanish Am War, have their lineages done this way. This is something that harkens back to what most people say is the KKK and everything else. With these people and the ID materials they could have, 14, 20 years of gathering up money across the world to make a major coordinated strike event. This is why I think they should have every single city flown over and scanned for historical situations. The same radar they use to look for cities that are lost in the Amazon rainforest and Central America rainforest. Therefore, anything can be preserved, even if it's one of the cities that I'm like, seriously, take a bulldozer to that place. It's horrible. Knowing what the people up the road, 10 minutes from me, that have had death threats against me, had other things happen with my family that will never be mentioned for anything. And they were just considered the softening up thing. This across the world, and it is such frivolous lawsuits that will get you $5,000, $20,000, $30,000. You will just have so much free money given to you. And generally, it will come back to some place, probably more in the, I really hate saying the Middle East, but I think they're really going to go for Europe or Africa. And there is a lot of stuff they have to do down in South America and Brazil. Due to the fact, between 75 years after World War II and 91 years after, it's Brazil. And we re-upped, like someone re-enlisting for 50 years. And we did it before VE Day was over. Even though, granted, I do know the advisors from the Krutz that are in President Obama's family, Liechtenstein, Hitler's family, on his mother's side, because he comes down here and visits and talks, and unfortunately I have in-laws. And I take a lot of their stuff very non-anything, but they will play their little stuff because they're little kids, and it's little kids killing everybody with their cell phones, taking the pictures, listening to the audio, if they can just keep it in their pocket and be like, I was out there and I was at a meeting thing. Well, somebody told them it would be a great idea to separate the things under a federal system of VI Day and VE Day, citing victory over Italy, victory over Germany. In and of this, people are making the argument now that 50 years does not include Mussolini. And as everything with the Germans, they are to be exterminated because basically 22 million Liechtensteins, since they couldn't really all live in their country, and it's a Principality of Rome, and is the descendant of Varese. I've actually had them running their mouth at me a lot over it. I forget who the Wrens are that were taken back into Germany, and they were given credit for destroying all the Germans. And the Tyrannos were taken into Switzerland, and they were given credit for destroying all the Swiss. And making it basically 100% Roman DNA theocracy. Anyway, more than likely, since most of the people are allied under Mussolini, Italy is considered underneath the Pope. The Pope and Mussolini don't really get along, even though they kind of need each other. Even in the last days, they said Muslim manpower, meaning Byzantium Muslims, not Islamic Muslims, were the real way to go. So the ID materials and everything, they're going to be getting something big together. And I think in this whole thing that if we can build ourselves back up, if anything throws off the timelines of whatever I sent into the Library of Congress, it'll be this 50-year re-up. Even though they say it moved things 20 years off, somewhere between 20 years of the start of Trump's term to the end of that 50 years under the COVID situation will be a return to Rome, and everyone will be on the side of the Pope, even the Protestants. And this will play right along with it. And as since Mussolini had all the mantles of everything for him, being the dictator, he will always be part of the papacy, and anything will be under his dictation. And those that will be tallied up will be gotten rid of, as several of his family have said around here, because they were too much of a walk-off group and needed to go someplace and get their walk-off situation out of their system. And as it is, since their loyalty to us, they will always be in benefit to us. I'm going to end this one right here. It's a Political Minute. Like and subscribe.